Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Fergus, campus librarian with ICC's Peoria campus, and today's workshop is 5 new ways to engage students in your course using ICC's reading lists. So we're going to look at a range of different features and ways that you can use reading lists to drive student involvement and engagement and interaction with the resources that you have. And the ones we're going to look at today will be how they can use the collections to manage their research. From there, they'd be able to suggest items. And where that can be useful is, for example, if you have an assignment where you have a requirement that their articles have to be approved, that suggest feature hands items off to you, the instructor, and then you can review the articles that the student is considering using. And then we'll look at some of the annotation features, which include highlighting and the ability to mark comments for certain parts of the text and make notes on the resources that they're using. This can also be used for collaboration as well. And then we'll look at the discussion features and how those can be used with articles and for videos. And lastly, we'll look at what they call social reading features, which would be things like marking items with a like button or marking as done, so that a student can signal that they really enjoyed a particular reading or keep track of where they are in the homework for that particular section. So to get started, from the library homepage, you might also access the reading lists from your course Blackboard site. But for a student, if they're using, if they happen to be in multiple classes that use reading lists, they'll be able to find all of those lists from the library homepage. So when you click on ICC Library Reading Lists under the Collections column, when they click on that, they'll see all the different classes that they might be associated with. But there's the little 3 lines here, which they call a hamburger icon. And you can, from there, click on that, and it brings up some different options. And we're going to look at the collections feature. Now, what the collections feature is basically it mirrors the library search, and articles that a student has pinned will carry over to their collections and vice versa. But what a student can do is do all their searching from within the reading lists by using this collections feature. So to get started, they will actually click this Add Items button. And what that does is it brings up these options here. So they might have a file that they've already downloaded an article, or they might have the link that they found from the database, but they can also search. So we're just going to explore search here. And I'm going to type in knee replacement rehabilitation. And you can choose also what you're going to include in the search. So I'm really only interested in articles for this search. So I'm going to search articles and more. And you might apply some advanced search, using different combinations or series of keywords. So you run your search, and it gives you kind of a breakdown by type of what you'll find there. So we have about 30,000 search results. 16,000 are peer reviewed. So I'm going to maybe click that to narrow further. And so let's say we need to find something that's within the last 5 years. So for example, this first article here is using 3D game-based rehabilitation following total knee replacement. It's from 2016. So I think this article looks pretty good. So I'm going to add this item to my collection, but I might continue to scroll through and see if there's others. And so here's one from 2021. So maybe I want to take a look at that one as well. So I've added a couple of items to my collection, and any items I have put here, unless I remove it from my collection or unpin it from the library, main library search, it will be in your account. So unless a student manually chooses to remove it from their list, it will always be there as long as they're an ICC student. So you can add your research there, and let's say you need to have your article approved. So the next step then would be to click on the three dots here and say you've made up your mind on a particular article. Take a step back here, and I'm going to use this 3D imaging one. So you click the three dots and it says suggest to this item. And then it'll ask you where you want to send this item as a recommendation for. So for today's demonstration, I'm using my own class, which is Live 116, even though I'm going to use Health for Careers resources as an example, just to kind of demonstrate though how this workflow works. So you'll select the class, and then you can leave a comment here, say, I think this is the article that I would like to use, but I'm not sure that it works. Can you take a look at it, or something of that nature? So then you go ahead and click the add suggestion. And then you, as the instructor, when you go to your class, which will be under lists, you can then go and manage your suggestions. So on the right margin here, you will see some different options that you have available. So if you click suggestions, you will see all the articles that have been handed off to you or passed to you from a student's suggestion. And so then from there, you can review the article and make sure that it will work for you. Now, once you've decided that the article will work, you can actually do one of two things. You can either just leave it in the suggestions or add it to the assignment folder or lesson section and practice. What I have done typically in my classes is I'll just create a section of approved articles near that unit or section where, like, if the students are doing a presentation, and then that way they'll be accessible for everybody and it'll be easy for them to find in association with that particular assignment. So once you've made a decision to go ahead and say an item is going to work, you can then just click and drag it to, you'll have to open this section first, but then once you've done that, you can actually click and drag that article or citation from the suggestions to that course section. So here I slid it over from the collections to the approved articles section. So now you can do one of two things. So the suggestions will stay there in perpetuity. You can either remove them, which you may not necessarily want to do if you have a lot of students, because once you've made the suggestion, it lists who made that. So the student's name will show up there. When you move it from the suggestions to the course content list, it does not necessarily always display the student's name. However, if you have smaller classes, it might still work well, because then you can just, they can tell you what article it is and you should be able to see it fairly easily from the list. So you can delete it from your suggestions list, but you might want to keep it there just so you have that student tag with it who suggested it for easy access. So that's a really easy way to manage your article approvals for a particular assignment using reading lists. So the students can build their search using the collections feature and manage and review the content that they have there. And then once they've made a decision on what they want to use, they can use that suggest items feature and then pass it to you. And then you can give a yay or nay on that article. And then from there, you can manage it by moving all those articles to an approved articles. This also works really well if you don't allow students to use the same article. So it's a great way to manage duplicating or avoiding duplication by being able to cross-reference an article that a student sends to you by seeing that it's already on the list as well. I find that really helpful. So now I want to look at actually some annotation features. So I just created a demo folder here, but let's say you have an article that a PDF version of an article that you wanted to import into your course reading list. So when you click on the article itself, it actually brings up kind of a viewer inside the reading list. And from here, you have several tools up at the top that you'll be able to use, such as highlighting, and there's comments as well. And then you can actually see there's a little comment bubble. And so what you can do is students can make notes. They can highlight by selecting some text and then highlighting some text and then clicking the highlight button, and then you'll see that that part of the text is highlighted. But you can also highlight and then or select text and then use the comment bubble and then make comments on a particular source there. It also gives you the option, you may have noticed too, to make your comments public or private. So you can use this in an interactive way. So a student, if they're just working by themselves and want to highlight or make notes to themselves on an article, they would probably keep it private. But if you wanted to do a group activity or you had a required reading, one of the things you could do is turn on those public features, and students can point out certain things in a particular article that make those connections to the readings or answer certain questions that you want them to find from the article. They can comment on it, make discussions, highlight certain important passages that they think. So this works really well as a group activity as well. You can have the article ready to go or document and just release it to the class, and they can work on it as a group and small groups. So it's really a neat kind of interactive feature, but it can be used on a personal level as well to manage and make notes from your weekly readings, or to take notes in preparation and to organize and prepare for like a bigger assignment, like writing a paper or presentation. So that is what the annotating features allow you to do. You can highlight and make comments, but also there is a built-in feature into the reading lists as well, which is the discussion feature. So for example, you can require a reading and require that students post a comment on their on the reading. So they could say, I thought that this article was So a student can post a comment there. It tells you who posted the comment, and or if they have questions about the comment, they can send questions in this way, and then you can respond to it as an instructor. And this can be used on each individual item. So that was an article, but say you have a video that you want them to watch. And similarly, you can use the discussion feature to comment on a particular video. So if you want to require that as an assignment, you can do that through the reading lists, where you require them to watch a video, but they have to comment on it. So maybe traditionally that's been a discussion board post. You can use that in reading lists now. So here I just gave another comment that I had typed myself, but if you had students do that, they would click on the entry and then use the student discussion feature, and they can post their comments about the video. So this can be used for any item in your reading list, honestly. So if you link to like a web-based activity, if you wanted to have them do discussion, that might work really well. They can review a website and basically compare notes with their classmates on the content of a particular source, or have some good discussion on the different content pieces that you have in your class. And say, all the students post their comments in the 20 minutes before the due date or due time. As you're grading, you can keep clicking refresh, and you would get any new comments that have been posted too. So you don't necessarily, as the instructor, have to close out and go back in. There's a refresh button right there, which makes it easy to manage. And so then lastly, there are what we call social reading features in the reading list. So say a student has reviewed a particular piece of content, they watched the video, they might choose to like the video, and it will tell you that who has liked that particular piece of content. And they also have the opportunity to mark as done. So, they can keep track of where they are in a particular assignment as well. So by checking that mark as done box, then they can manage and keep track of where they are in their weekly homework. So again, here, that's like a little check mark. And then the check mark will show up next to each piece of content once they have completed it. So this is a variety of different ways that you can actually employ reading lists, but also get your students to actually engage in the content. So they can do their searching from the collections feature built into the reading lists, which mirrors the library search. You might not have as many filtering options from within the collections. So a student then, if they're really struggling to find the content that they may need, they may then go build their search in the library search, where they can do the filtering. And there they would use the pinning feature, which will copy anything that's pinned or favorited to their library search into their collections. From there, they can suggest items, which hands that material off to you, and you can review it. And from there, that workflow could then be used for article approvals, that sort of thing. And then you can post articles and have students annotate or make comments on it. They can engage with the content. That can be used for assignments if you want them to discuss particular readings or a video that you wanted to have them watch in a particular lesson. And then they also have some built-in features on the student side where they can mark that they really really enjoyed a particular source that was part of that week's homework, or they could also mark their work as done, which is a great way for students to manage their where they are in a particular lesson or stage of their homework. So I know in my class, I didn't even point that out, but I do have one student that is actively using that mark is done to kind of keep track of where they are. So it's been kind of neat for me to see that without even pointing out that that's available. So obviously, I think that's a sign that that student has discovered that on their own and finds it really helpful for them to kind of keep track of where they are in each lesson or course section's content. And similarly, the same student also discovered a problem with one of the links. And so they were able to mark that as set as broken or report broken. And so we were able to kind of go behind the scenes and figure out what was happening with that particular item. So that feature has been in the reading lists from Go for an easy way for students to indicate or report problems with content. But this is a series of different features that are now available and might pose some, present some different opportunities for you in your classes to make the homework a little more interactive and perhaps some tools that could be useful for students to both manage their content, but also work through their homework and assignments, for example, by using those annotation features and making comments or notes about the sources that they have for that particular assignment. And it also, they can be used for their weekly readings too, where they can highlight and make notes to themselves about the things that they think are important or that you want them to draw from those particular readings as well. So that's just a really quick snapshot on how some of those features work. And we'd be happy to work with you one-on-one and maybe explore some different ways that you can incorporate these features into a particular assignment or to present to your students how they can engage in your course content using these features in the reading lists. So I thank you for taking the time to attend or watch this session, and we'd be happy to help in any way that we can and help you kind of take advantage of these really great features using the ICC library reading lists. Thank you.